guys, I want to take a few minutes and talk about how we set up our rig for freediving. I'm not going to talk about how we make it, how we create the thing. I'll do another video on that at some point. But I know some of you have had some questions about how to actually set it up once we're ready to go out diving. So there's a lot of different ways that you can build your rig, so don't pay too much attention to the details of mine. But a couple things is make sure that your bar is long enough for the number of people that you're going to have out on your line. Remember, the whole idea is to have somewhere for your divers to hold on to and be out of the way of the bottom plate or the dive line, in between their dives. So especially here in Hawaii, current can be a big factor. So we don't necessarily want people to have to swim to stay in position, and if they're holding onto the float that the diver is diving on, then they're going to be in the way, especially if you start talking about having 4, 5, 6 people on the line at once. So here I only have part of my rig set up. I just have one end and the cleat here, but it could be, I think when I have all the sections of mine put together, I think it's 15 feet long. So one thing that I will point out quickly, if you've been diving on my rig with me, the way my PVC is put together, I don't want a lot of pulling, a lot of tensile stress on the joints of my rig. So I'll put the orange line through the fitting on one end, wrap it around the pipe all the way down the length of it, and then put it over the end, so that if the current pulls on the rig, that this line will actually constrict on the pipe and hold onto it, and prevent it from getting jerked at the fittings or at the weak point in the rig. So, and I've learned the hard way. You want to make sure that your rig can withstand that stretching force. Okay, so once we've got the bar put together and we've got it set up however we're going to do it, so if you only had one piece of PVC, you wouldn't necessarily need to be worried about the joints, so then maybe you wouldn't have the line around it. But either way, so if it's there, or if it's not, whatever. So you've got your dive line. Now, I always like to put my dive line in a bag. I know there's a lot of instructors out there that think that daisy chaining is the way to go. I don't like to daisy chain the line. I think that it's a lot of effort for very little payoff, right? So you make your dive line, 25% of what it was, but you still have this long pile of line that you need to do something with, and you spent all that time to daisy chain it. I have 40 meters of line in this bag. Actually, I think it's 46 meters of line in this bag. Nice and small and compact. It's not going anywhere. It's not drifting around in the ocean. I don't have to deal with it. When it comes time to put it back in the bag, you feed it in nice and neat so that it comes out the same way. I'm just going to do it here. So in the water, it's a little bit easier than on land because you're dealing with gravity. But I put it over the back of my neck, and then that just kind of prevents it from falling back down as I'm feeding it into the bag. And I hold the bag with my hands, and then I just feed the line in. And then once you've got tension, you can pull 2 lines. I don't want to give myself rope burn right now, but really easy. Put the line in that way. Super fast. Stays in there nice and neat. And then you just have this bag when it comes time to deal with stuff. So then, it's not in the float, and now the float weighs a lot and all that. You can take this and it's nice and compact. So we go to set this dive line or this rig up for use. So this is, as it's sitting right here, how it's going to go in the water. I have my cleat set up on the side. I like it that way for a lot of different reasons. But the pulley is going down. So we're not using a counterbalance. So again, in PFI standards, we use a counterbalance for dives deeper than 40 meters with a lanyard, so a freediver retrieval system. That's not what I'm setting up here. I'll do a different video for that. So I want to put this line near my cleat. So I just use the drawstring on the bag, and I go through the center of the cleat, and then around both horns of the cleat. So now the line Vegas is hanging on my rig. So then I take the end out, which I've already done, and I go down here through the pulley. Okay, so now I've got the line going through the pulley. I've got it here. I grab my bottom plate, I go through the bottom plate, and then I'm going to tie a knot. I like to keep it simple. I use one knot for everything. It's an easy knot to tie. It's just a double figure 8 knot. So double because it's bent over. There's lots of different ways you could tie this knot. Give myself a little slack here. So a lot of people learn it to twist and then pull it through. I think it works just fine. I think it's hard. So you can also do it this way, just over twice, and then pull it through. Same thing, ties the same knot. But what you're looking for here, and you want the figure 8 knot because it's easy to undo. A square knot would accomplish the same thing, but it's really hard to untie when you're done. So now I've got the knot tied. What I'm looking for here is I want the knot to sit up against the bottom plate, but I want the line to be right at the bottom of this little bracket. So if it's too short and it's up here, then what's going to happen is the bottom plate, like if it's short like this, then the bottom plate is going to bounce on the bottom. And if it's too long, then the weight is going to hang on the bracket, which is putting stress on the plastic. So you're looking for that sweet spot, not up against the bottom plate, line right at the bracket. So then I take my bottom weights and I clip them right here. So there's a lot of different ways you can do bottom weights as well, right? But I have just a simple nylon strap with a carabiner on it. Locking carabiners are important. In all the carabiners I use in my system are all locking, and for a reason. If the rig starts bouncing, either due to people pulling on it for free immersion, or because of the waves bouncing the floats, as the stress comes on and off and unloads and reloads that carabiner, the gate could open and then your thing could come apart. So you could drop the bottom weights, or the float could come disconnected from the bar and drop the whole rig, which obviously none of that's good, especially if you're diving anywhere deep. But even shallow, now you've got all this weight on the bottom. Just because you can find it doesn't mean it's very easy to get. So once you're in the water, I wait to do this until I'm actually setting up to dive. But then you can put the weight on the bracket and on the line. So underwater, it's hanging just like that. So that's pretty straightforward. I'll take this back off. Let's set this down. So once I've got this on there, I can just pull this line up tight so that it's up against the pulley. And then I'm going to put a cleat hitch on my cleat. Now, so I know that I'm a little bit OCD when it comes to this stuff, but I always like to go under the cleat first as opposed to over the cleat. Why? Does it really matter? It probably doesn't, but this angle is a little less severe, so that's why I like to do it. So when you see me change things around on my rig like that, it's because I'm OCD and a little bit crazy. So simple cleat hitch, you go around, make that figure 8, and then this is the part where people get tripped up. So you're going to go on this horn again, but you're going to flip it over. So you can see just like this, flip it over, it goes on the horn now. And the way you know it's right is that this standing line here is parallel to this one that's on there underneath it. So now it's locked. It's not going to go anywhere. I can pull. And then I just go around one more time. And I only do that so that if the line is bouncing because of waves and stuff like that, it doesn't loosen and undo the cleat, or the cleat hitch rather. But I just go around, pull it up underneath it, and then I screwed this up somehow. And then it's going over the bar into the bag. So that's the pretty simple method there. What did I do? Okay. So, and in the bag. The last thing that you're going to do is you want to tie a knot. Same knot, because I keep it easy, right? Double figure eight. You're going to put that in the bag. It's going to do two things for you. Once it's in the bag and you pull the drawstring on the bag tight, the line isn't going to come out of the bag. So if there's current pulling on your line, it's not going to come out and you have all your line free floating away. That's not going to happen. But more importantly, if that cleat hitch does come undone and it drops the weight, this knot is going to hit the pulley and it's going to stop it from going any further. That could be a really big deal if someone's diving on it, if they're doing free immersion, or maybe they're doing one of the skills like they're sitting on the bottom plate to do their mask flood, and now you drop that bottom plate and you could rupture their eardrums. So obviously not good, and of course, you could also just drop the bottom weight and be out the weight, which is pretty expensive. So right, I have 25 pounds on the bottom of mine, and I think the last time I checked here in Hawaii, weight was like $6 or $7 a pound. So that's a lot of weight, a lot of money. But that's it. That's nice and set up, simple. When it comes time to, so when we're putting the rig in the water, I'll clip the weights on the float first. That way there's no stress on the bar, there's no weird thing going on there. Then once we have everything in the water and ready to go, I'll move the weight from the float to the bottom plate like I just showed you. And then to adjust it, it's really easy. You just untie the knot first, undo your cleat hitch, and you can leave it like this, pull some out of the bag, and then just feed it. And because there's weight on it, it'll just pull. So you just pull out of the bag and keep feeding it down to where you want. To bring it back up, put your foot against the pulley and just start pulling. Once it's where you want it, grab the line, pinch it against the bar like that. Then you can come back under here and do your cleat hitch. That's it. That's all there is to it. So hopefully that answered any questions you have about how to set the rig up. The only other thing is on the bar itself, we have whatever your connection point is here. I have these rings. That's where you're going to clip your float to. Again, just like I said, with the bottom weights, locking carabiner. Once you have your stuff in the water, make sure you go through and check all your carabiners to make sure that they're actually locked. And then, so the other thing you want is with the locking carabiners, you always want the carabiner to be oriented this way in the water. And the reason is it jostles around and the locking mechanism moves, it's always going to want to go down, right? It's going to go with gravity. So if the carabiner is oriented this way, the locking device is going to lock the carabiner. If it's this way in the water, now as it jostles and the locking device goes with gravity, it's going to go down and unlock itself. So make sure your carabiners are locked, make sure they're pointed in this direction, and then you're ready to dive. Hopefully that answers all the questions you have. I'll do another one for setting up a counterbalance, and I'll do one for how do we actually build this rig if you want one that's this style with the bar on the two floats and that kind of stuff. So